Welcome to Tuesdays at 2 with your co-host, Vicki Semander, Secrets of the Sistership founder, and Constance Jones, Sistership board member and vice president of the Houston Minority Supplier Development Council. Each Tuesday at 2, we'll bring you experts to share content that is sure to encourage, empower, and inspire you. Today, Constance will be introducing and interviewing 2 experts in their field of technology and project management. Constance will also be sharing programs and services the Council has to help our members and other minority business owners in our community. Take it away, Constance.
Thank you, Vicki. And as always, it's great to be online and sharing these resources with our MBEs and our minority business community. Good afternoon. I am Constance Jones, Vice President for the Houston Minority Supplier Development Council. I am so excited to interview these 2 people today. These have been 2 longtime outstanding members of HMSDC, and they have been a part of the organization for 10 plus years. We have Ruby Reynolds, the program manager for GHG Corporation, which is located in Clear Lake. And we have Clifton Clark, Chief Technology Officer from Computer Decisions. Both of these minority entrepreneurs provide great resource and value to our major corporations, government agencies, and other institutions that are located throughout the U.S. Their business opportunities expand across both national and international borders, and so they have a lot of information to share with us today. We'll start off by talking to Ms. Ruby Reynolds. Ruby is, as I mentioned, the program manager for GHG Corporation. She'll tell us a little bit about the services GHG offers, and then she'll get into providing information about how do you work remotely. You know, we were thrust into this with the COVID-19, and some of us may not have had an opportunity to really understand how to set up our offices and be productive. We know that, and personally, the council knows that GHG has experienced this several times as they were flooded during Harvey. And did y'all experience another flood before Harvey, Ruby?
We did, the tax day flood.
The tax day floods. So they've had experience of having to adapt remotely quickly without any planning. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Ruby Reynolds.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Constance, and thank you, Vicki, for this opportunity. Again, I'm Ruby Reynolds, Program Manager with GHG Corporation. We are an engineering and IT services firm. We've been in business for over 40 years, doing business in the government and also in the commercial sector. Our corporate office is located in Clear Lake, as Constance mentioned, but our footprint expands across several continents. So thank you so much. As Constance mentioned, we've literally been thrust into this, work from home. And I want to talk about how do you maximize, make the most of your teleworking experience. So I'm going to pull up my presentation so that I can share it share it on the screen. All right. So maximizing your telework experience. I first want to talk about self-care. I think, first of all, we always need to make ourselves a priority. And as we are, moving into a different phase of how we're working, we want to make sure that we make ourselves a priority. This list is definitely not all encompassing, but it's some things that I think you should consider as from day to day to make the best of your teleworking experience. So one, you want to be consistent. Have a routine so that you can have a work-life integration. We're living in the same place, working in the same place, so you want to make sure that you put some things in place, a routine, so you can have some structure. You want to maintain a normal sleep schedule. Maintain healthy eating, and make sure you're eating enough fruits and vegetables. You want to stay physically active, connect with your family and friends, but most importantly, as you're going throughout your day, take breaks. You may want to take a quick walk around the block, get some vitamin D. So that's self-care. Working from home creates new opportunities, but it also creates unique challenges. For one, it gives you control of your schedule and charge of your day. You get to determine how you will conquer your day, what tasks you will do, what tasks you will take, and what priority each task will have. And for me, no more commuting. I mean, that's a big thing for me, and I know that my commute now is only a few steps, so that's definitely a great opportunity. One of the challenges working remotely is there are interruptions, there are distractions. We can miss that human interaction, and sometimes it's hard to really balance your work and your life. Structure is absolutely everything. I would recommend that you designate a workspace away from your common living area and let some sunshine in. Plan your workday in advance so you'll know what tasks you need to tackle on that particular day. By all means, you want to get dressed for work. It helps to create a productive mindset. And you definitely want to manage your tasks well so that they're executed and completed on time. Stay connected. Staying connected is key. For me, I manage several programs and contracts for GHG. So I'm doing my best to make sure that I'm engaging with my team, but that I'm also engaging with my boss. So I'm staying connected through email. We're using Zoom, and we know that Zoom gives us the opportunity to have video so that we can actually have a physical interaction or be able to see someone on the screen. And we know that that enhances our involvement and connection with people. When you're doing your meetings, keep them short and sweet and make sure you start and end on a very positive note. Another thing is to make sure that you're transparent about your tasks, the progress that you're making, and don't hesitate to solicit help, because you don't want to get in a situation where you're right up against a deadline and you don't see an end in sight. So make sure you're keeping the lines of communication open. The art of multitasking. I know we've all seen those videos where the parents on the conference and you can hear the kids in the background, and there's always, there's so many different things going on, but there is an art to multitasking. Some of us are parenting, we're homeschooling, and we're working at the same time. You've got to create a schedule and stick to it. And you've also got to set some boundaries. For those of us that have small children, create some signs so that they'll know when is a safe time to interrupt. You may want to have them create the signs and make them fancy or however they would like to make them. But a few suggestions that I have here, one may be a stop sign. One could be a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So they'll know when it's safe to come and interrupt you. And by all means, as I mentioned before, make sure you're taking breaks. Break up your day with small breaks. Focus when you need to so you can disconnect when it's time. That is key. So make sure you have that structure so that your days could be productive and that you can actually have that work-life balance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruby, for providing that information. I know it's important, especially for those of us who are leading multi-teams, to be able to share that information and be able to just kind of understand what life is like nowadays. Because just like you mentioned, I am a parent, I am schooling, I'm teaching, I'm coaching, I'm doing all of the above. So how do you make that happen still with an 8-hour day? And when they come downstairs and say, Mom, I'm hungry, that it's all of a sudden lunchtime, right? So those are some great points. Thank you for sharing. We're now here from Clifton Clark. And Clifton comes with the perspective of, are you set up technology-wise in order to be efficient in working remotely from home? And so Clifton is with Computer Decisions, like I mentioned, and he is also a consultant to HMSDC and has allowed us to be able to work virtually. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Clifton.
Thank you. Thank you for that kind introduction. Again, I am Clifton Clark. Chief Technology Officer for Computer Decisions. We started our company in 1997 here in Houston with a primary focus in engineering and oil and gas, supporting those industries. We've long since branched out to many sectors and basically applied that same enterprise framework across multiple industries and also across multiple continents. I'm going to quickly run through a few touch points that should be important to most business owners as well as teleworkers. And I hope that this information can greatly assist you. So we're going to talk about implementing a telecommuting strategy or ensuring you have most of the touch points in place to support that. Real quickly, we're going to talk about business requirements, remote computing, security, and standardized communications and conferencing. So one of the business requirements, or several of the business requirements, is definitely keeping in touch with our team and team collaboration. We want to make sure that we are in touch with our teams, if not daily, maybe a couple of times a day. We need to continue to meet our business productivity requirements. That means providing our services and the things that our organizations are known to deliver. We definitely want to see how we can leverage technology to continue to meet those objectives. And then staying engaged with our customers. We have to keep in mind that our customers more than likely are under the same adverse circumstances that we're under. So we need to be able to leverage neat and nifty ways to kind of stay in touch with them. Remote computing. Now everyone's at home. Everybody's using technology remotely from the comfort of their homes. And we normally, for those of us that do that, we probably do that occasionally or as needed. But having to do that continually and daily, there's several factors we need to look into. We definitely need to make sure that we have a healthy computer and it's performing nominally, and then ensure that, you know, the security parameters are in place, and also ensuring that we have data backups. When we're in the office, we kind of take that for granted because IT is usually working very hard in the background. But now that we have a little bit more ownership of our own fate and our own data, we need to make sure that we are looking at ways to back up our data on our computer. Reprographics and printing needs, you know, we would think that the degree of printing may lessen once you're home and computing or out of the office and computing. But for those of us that for many, many years have liked to print the information we receive and then translate that back to an electronic response, you want to make sure that you have plenty of the printing accessories, the toners, the paper, all of those things. Make sure you have them well in advance and an ample supply of those. And then secure access to the appropriate company data. A lot of us, whether we're working in the cloud or whether we're working off of the data that's stored at a physical company, we want to make sure that if we are still accessing that data, we're doing it in accordance with best practices and from a security standpoint. Technology security. While we're working at home, and the majority, if not all of our work now is being done from a remote location, some of the industry standard best practices is to ensure your router and your firewall configuration is that of what are the standard best practices. And I'll give you an example. So if you're with Comcast or AT&T, Verizon, whomever your standard internet service provider is, in most cases, those devices come with a default username and password. That's one of the first things you want to do if you haven't done it already. Ensure that you've set a specific password on that device. Is one of the very first things you want to do. Ensure that your Wi-Fi connection requires a secure password. Not many Wi-Fi connections are open, but if you don't recall changing that Wi-Fi password in the last 60, 90, 120 days, I would recommend that you do that, because there are many, shall we say, hackers at work, now that they know everybody is home, that are just busy at work trying to be a menace or actually get their hands on your secured information. So I would recommend changing your Wi-Fi password if you can't recall the last time you did that. Also, making sure that your PC has the most up-to-date virus protection. In most cases, if it doesn't, it's trying to tell you that via some type of pop-up message, or down in the corner, it's telling you your virus date is out of date. I would make sure that you adhere to those warnings at your earliest convenience. That is very crucial now, especially as we are a remote telecommuting. We are more vulnerable than in most cases when we're in the office, where they have probably more strict security requirements. IT admins, for those business owners that where we've left technology up and going back at our offices, we need to ensure that our technology support entities are maintaining that equipment. There's always a sense of lights on, lights off, but true to the effect, that equipment still requires regular maintenance if it is in the on state. So we want to ensure that those things are getting taken care of remotely, timely, and on a regular basis. Communications and conferencing. So now that we're displaced in our marketplace, and that means more than likely not spending a lot of time in our physical office, interacting with our clients in a manner in which we're accustomed to, you definitely want to keep your website up to date. And a lot, more so than what we realize, people are generally concerned with what's going on with your organization, aside from the promised services and products that they usually get from you. So update your website with what your organization is doing now to stay sustainable, and ensure that you're delivering your products and services. Kind of let them know how and what you're doing to compensate for the current situation. Everybody wants to know that you're still able to deliver, and making that message quite clear kind of alleviates, the standard guessing game. Update your auto attendance on your phone systems if you have that. The auto attendant is the little recorded voice that picks up. So if people are still dialing your main office number, let them know, kind of similar to what you've put on your website, that we're still here to serve you under these circumstances, and this is how we're serving you now. Communicate with your customer base frequently. Targeted messaging kind of goes right back to what we're suggesting about your website. Reach out to your customers with some type of information update. And your customer base really likes to know that you're thinking about them as well, keeping them in the loop. So you may want to think about timely mass email communications, whether that be weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. But you want to let your customers know that you're still here to serve them and meet their needs. And then standardize your conferencing. We heard Ms. Reynolds talk about their use of Zoom. There are quite a few what we consider over-the-counter systems out there. If your organization is not already subscribed to a conferencing service, look into those and pick up one that suits the needs of your organization. And most companies now that are already in the cloud, a lot of those come with, I know Google has one, I know Microsoft has one, whomever your messaging service provider is, most of them have one, but again, many are available over the counter. Some of the best practical uses now would be your team check-ins. If you're doing those daily, try to make them a little bit more personal with your teams. Your teams want to know that we as business owners care about them. We want to understand what's going on with them. We're missing that personal touch that we get in the office, where we can just get up and maybe dash to a coworker's office or to their space. We don't have that right now, but I think, through the use of standardized conferencing, we can gain a little of that back. And the same thing would be with, depending on the services that you offer online communications with your with your customer base. Doesn't always have to be over the phone or over the cell phone. Many of us are adopting to these online technologies today. Start to leverage them in your services and in your forms of communication and marketing. And that's all I have for now. Thank you very much. Ms. Jones, did you have any questions?
Thank you for sharing that information, Clifton. So I know that we are using some of that technology that you shared in order to stay connected with our team. So Ruby, you mentioned in your presentation that you manage a lot of projects, and hopefully your teams and your projects are working well. Are you seeing any kind of slowdowns or disconnect because you're working remotely, or were y'all kind of pretty prepared for this since you already had worked remotely before forced by the floods?
I have not seen a slowdown at all. Fortunately, kind of on the flip side of the flood, we learned a lot of valuable things from the first time. So when we flooded the second time, we were really good to go. Some years ago, GHG invested and created some projects, some products to automate our processes. And we also purchased some tools to help us stay connected. So we've done really well, and the majority of the work that GHG does is mission critical. It's to the national, to NASA, to their program, and also the National Science Foundation. So fortunately for us, our employees are still employed. The majority of them are working remotely, and those that are required to report to work are taking all those precautions that are needed.
Good. Okay. Well, that's good to know and helpful to see that you utilize some of the issues and things that could be looked at as detrimental for your firm in order to turn it around to something positive. And so that was great forethought on behalf of GHG. Clifton, we oftentimes talk about, getting our business ready for disaster recovery. And in Houston, normally when we think about that, it's always hurricanes and tornadoes in that season. But this is a disaster too. And so if this took me by surprise, then what would be your recommendation for a small business to get ready for future disasters so that they are prepared to do the things that you just talked about?
We do see a mix of priorities specifically in the small business enterprise space, but there is a huge demand. And for those organizations that have survived previous hurricanes and floods, I think they're a little bit more adept, but they haven't fully matured to draw out a plan on paper. And one of the things we want to really stress is that we always hear the term disaster recovery, which is usually indicative of an incident. So an unexpected flood, an unexpected force majeure incident on their equipment. But what we're kind of looking at now kind of falls under the line of actually business continuity. So for a long-term plan, how would your company run? How, where would your employees work? How would you communicate? What is your sustainability plan if you can't immediately get back to your office? Kind of where we are today. So we recommend that business owners, as you're working now, because again, we don't have any immediate foresight as to when this would play out, but capture what you're doing now is a good start for both a disaster recovery and business continuity plan, so that you'll be well prepared and you will have a script to follow in the event we should have another incident along these lines. But I definitely encourage them to start putting together a disaster recovery and business continuity plans.
And Clifton, how do we get in touch with you if we are interested in utilizing your talents into helping us with those continuity plans, or to contact you about setting up working remotely?
So you can find me on my website at www.computerdecisions.net. you can email me at business@computerdecisions.net or call my office directly at 713-523-2255.
Thank you. And Ms. Reynolds, how would we contact you if we just have questions about how do you manage and work remotely?
Again, it's Ruby Reynolds, GHG Corporation. My email address is ruby.reynolds@ghg.com. I also like to add, Constance, some years ago, we did automate our time and attendance system. There's also an HR component of that. So we would love to talk to other small businesses if they're looking to automate their timekeeping process, check stubs, leave balances, all that good stuff. So please reach out to me. Again, my email address is ruby.reynolds@ghg.com. My phone number is 281-488-8806, extension 121. Thank you.
And Ruby, you just brought up something that was that's interesting as the government is passing all of these different rules and creating all of these loan products and programs. So your time and attendance system also helps keep up with payroll, right?
Absolutely. We are a DCAA compliant product. Because GHG is a government contractor, we've gone through all of those rigorous audits and gotten kind of the stamp to prove that, you know, we have an acceptable system. We have over 1,000 companies that utilize our product. It's kind of cool because there are many companies that do what we do, but we are able to come in and customize, make customizations so that there's no huge change on your side of the house. We can build an interface to talk to our system, and we can provide the data that you need in a timely fashion. There's ad hoc reporting and all kinds of different gadgets and little neat things that are part of our system.
And that's cool. And so that is a great segment into what we're having next week on our Tuesdays at 2. We're going to have Abigail Gonzalez from the Small Business Administration actually come in and talk about some of those loan products that's being administered by the government. So she'll talk about the PPP program, that's the payroll program, as well as the EIDL loan and disaster loan. So tune in next week to hear more information about that. Panelists, I want to thank you again for your participation today. If we provide, although we think we have all this information down, just kind of hear it again, make sure that we are aligning with things that are keeping us healthy and safe, as well as helping us continue our business productivity is what we aim to offer when we bring these types of experts together. So again, I'd like to thank you for your participation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much for participating in Tuesdays at 2. I look forward to seeing you next week.